On the same trip that I took to Six Flags Over Georgia, I took a pit stop to check out one of, if not the best coaster in the state, ArieForce One. This coaster is a ground up RMC creation, delivers some of the most dynamic elements that I personally experienced, and is touted to be in many enthusiasts' top 5. Surprisingly, you can't find this coaster at any of the major parks around the US. That's because this one of a kind, jaw dropping coaster is located at a small chain FEC park. My name is Avery, and this is United Coasters. Unless you were a local to the areas, the name Funspot didn't mean that much for thrill seekers in the last decade. That's definitely changed in at least 2 of its parks, like when they introduced Mindblower at Funspot Kissimmee in Florida, and what really put them on the map was when they unveiled ArieForce One in 2023 at Funspot America in Atlanta. Anyone who's in the know for roller coasters knows about this ride, so it's only a hidden gem because of the park that it's in. That's because when you step back from its landmark coaster, Funspot America just has 2 thrill/family coasters, some flat rides, an arcade, and go-karts. This is essentially a bigger ZDT's amusement park. And just like that park, it's the eye-catching coaster that makes this place a must-visit. ArieForce One stands tall in the sky with a height of 155 feet and a drop of 146 feet. And upon riding this multiple times, there are 3 takeaways that you can get from this coaster. The first being its presentation. Funspot America opened in 1990, so ArieForce One stands out as the newest, shiniest attraction at the back of the park. It can also be seen on the side of the road, peeking out past the thicket of trees covering the surrounding area. With its striking red and blue tracks standing in stark contrast to its white supports, this RMC creates an astounding look at that red, white, and blue America, perfect for the park name itself. Walking under the ride to enter the queue line, ArieForce One takes the majority of the view. While in the queue, the theme of space exploration and really all things aeronautics is present. The promotional trailer for the ride and the ride's train's own theming gives off a space vibe, while the name for the coaster is a play on Air Force One. In fact, ArieForce One is named after Funspot America's founder, John Arie Sr. Visuals aside, the next 2 takeaways are the elements on this ride and the vast differences depending on the ride seat. Instead of a lit hill right out of the station, the coaster starts with a slight dip into 3 small bunny hills, giving front riders a pop of speed and back riders a repetitive jolt of force. After ascending the lit hill to a height of 155 feet or 47 meters, you descend the 146 foot or 45 meter drop at an angle of 83 degrees. Steeper than the RMC Twisted Cyclone, located in the same state at Six Flags Over Georgia. It's nothing like a 90-degree drop, but back row riders will be slightly lifted out of their seat. After, you rise, twisting to the right before curving left, under, and down the first inversion, a Raven Trust dive. This element disoriented me when I first rode it, simply due to that track layout. The coaster then brings you parallel to the first drop, but goes over a speed hill before performing a 0G stall that aligns underneath the first drop. Upon its exit, the coaster immediately takes a left on an extreme outward bank airtime hill. I know that sounds like a lot to take in, and I can assure you that it's a lot to experience when you're actually on it. Regardless if you ride in the front or the back, on these set of elements, you can feel that top speed of 64 miles or 103 kilometers per hour. And especially when I rode this in the back row, I cannot stress to you enough about how during this set of elements, I was out of my seat with a mix of Flowjector airtime the entire time. That series of elements has currently got to be the greatest moments I've ever had on a roller coaster. Next, ArieForce One goes past its entry walkway with a double up that goes into its third inversion, a 0G roll over the park's arcade, or what they call the arcade roll. You enter the inversion with some speed from the previous big drop, making this inversion memorable going through the ride supports. After, you drop low to the ground by the water, immediately turning hard right. The whole time, the coaster's forces are pulling you deep down into your seat, only then to flip you over and to the left with a barrel roll. The sudden change of forces from crushing positives to lifting negatives is a surreal experience. You then rise up in a hop to undergo the last element, the divisive quad down. That's where the coaster undergoes 4 forceful hills where you repeatedly slant into your restraints on the way to the final brakes. For me, this part in the front row offers more of an enjoyable experience rather than when I was in the back row where the airtime was just aggressive. Either way, you go into the final brakes, ending the ride. ArieForce One is currently one of the most decisive coasters that I've been on so far. The track layout is where the coaster truly shines. Its smooth track is jam-packed with well-paced elements, but on some parts, especially the ending, it feels like the speed of the ride hinders the enjoyment. Unless you're a fan of the most extreme coasters, ArieForce One is a coaster that you should consider yourself bracing for. Not necessarily stapling yourself on the coaster, but at least get prepared for some of the transitions. Besides that minor hiccup, the fact that the park entry is free and that an all-day wristband is under $50 that gives you unlimited rides on this coaster and the other attractions is a really great deal. And if you don't want to spend that much, it's always cheaper to get a single ride on it too. Although I strongly recommend that you get at least 2 tickets so that way you know how it feels riding in the front versus riding in the back. I'm telling you, the difference in the ride is night and day. It's so much of a difference that I honestly couldn't tell you which one I like better. That's because I can't tell you if the speed in the front row is better than that airtime in the back row. Honestly, you'll just have to ride this yourself to understand. Just like the other coasters I reviewed in this series, ArieForce One is a coaster that is a definite must-ride and gets a definitive rating of 10. It's not that far from Six Flags Over Georgia, and it's leagues better than Twisted Cyclone. If you've ridden ArieForce One or plan on riding it after watching this video, please feel free to leave a comment below. Oh, and subscribe if you haven't already. Finally, I just want to say thank you for watching, and remember to stay united.